All right, ladies and gentlemen, you already know what time it is. You already know what day it is. So let's go ahead and get the formalities out of the way, shall we? Yo, peoples, Kyushu92 here, and we all know what happens at the end of every month. It is time for more One Piece reflections, where I go through all the chapters that we get at the end of each month to see where we are in the story of One Piece and what could possibly happen in the future. With the three chapters, chapters 1062, 63, and 64, that was released this month, we are introduced to the island of Egghead, which is Dr. Vegapunk's main laboratory and all the significant people that live in it. So we'll go over everything. We'll go through the chapter notes and make note of all the notable things that happen within each chapter. And then we can talk about where we think this story of One Piece is going to go from this information. Spoiler alert, still have no idea, but we'll just discuss it as we go. It's a little bit gloomy outside because it was raining a little bit, so thank God for a light. And I made the mistake of looking into that light that one quick second, and now okay, that's my fault. Psycho, good to see you. So let's go ahead and get started with chapter 1062, Adventure in the Land of Science. Now this, beforehand, we were with Luffy's group, with Jewelry, Bonnie, Jinbei, and Chopper. And now, in this chapter, we are with Frankie, who's losing his mind over the fact that, hey, we're here on the island of Dr. Vegapunk. And Frankie is cheering and everything. He's all like, hey, Vegapunk, I really respect your work. I spent 2 years at the lab in your whole time, Baltimore, in your hometown of Baltimore. I got so many things to show off to you. Not realizing that all the stuff that Frankie has in him, all the cybernetic enhancements, are basically Vegapunk's old junk that he got rid of. So, once again, this arc has to be the arc where Frankie actually gets an upgrade concerning himself, because him and Brook and Usopp, they kind of really do need buffs a little bit. I know Usopp has observation haki, but he is yet to fully awaken it. He only used it like one time, and that was to rescue Law and Luffy from Sugar back in Dressrosa. But Frankie, he needs an upgrade because he's been the same since we've seen him since the time skip, and nothing new has been shown off. Not really. Like, the newest thing we saw was Frankie Radical Beam, and that's one of his biggest things. That's the only big super move that he ever really falls back on, is just Frankie's Radical Beam. So nothing really new. But then it cuts to Usopp going, how many dozens of times bigger than the general Frankie is that? I wish Luffy and Chopper could see this. And Sanji's losing his mind over the fact that we see this person calling themselves Vegapunk, but they don't look like the Vegapunk that we know. Actually, you know what? Let me move this downward. Let me just move this down so you guys can see my face as well. So, Sanji's losing his mind over the woman that's piloting this giant robot that rescued the rest of the Straw Hat crew. And then Robin, who is already in the combat position, goes, wait, I've never heard that Vegapunk was a woman, and her appearance doesn't add up based on Vegapunk's long history of activity. So due to Robin being with the revolutionaries, of course she would know more about Vegapunk than anyone else. And that comes to play a little bit later in the other chapters that we go through. And then this person calling themselves Vegapunk pretty much confirms what I thought the last time we saw the chapter when this person was introduced. She says, of course it doesn't. I'm obviously not the Stella. That's the main body. And apparently the main body is called Stella. The main body. And here's where it starts to get confusing, because she says she's not part of the main body. But we find out what that means later in this chapter. I am Punk number 2, Vegapunk Lilith the Evil, and my research budget is constantly stretched to the seam, so hand over your valuables. After that, I'm done with you. And then Nami's all like, what are you talking about on this frigid sea? If you're going to scoop us up out of the water, at least see it through and save us. And Lilith's all like, I did not save you. These waters are normally unreachable by ships. These things ensure they all get sunk. And then a multitude of mechanical giant sea beasts basically just come up out of the water and surrounds Lilith along with the rest of the Straw Hat crew. And Frankie is still losing his mind over seeing all the cybernetic enhancements that a lot of these creatures are covered in. And Zoro's just looking, and he's not doing anything. Everyone else is screaming out of fear, but Frankie's looking in amazement, and Zoro's just looking calmly. Then Lilith gets a message saying, "Lilith, what are you doing? Plundering again? Have you no scientist pride?" And then we get the name of someone else called Shaka, the do-gooder. Will pride increase our budget? And then this person named Shaka says, first of all, they are not going to surrender. That's the crew of Straw Hat, the one who just got made Emperor of the Sea. So they already know the events surrounding Luffy and the rest of the crew. And this Shaka individual is already familiar with them. And Lilith, not understanding the situation that she's in, just goes, "I know, right? They must be laden with treasure. In that case, you've made a terrible mistake." Mistake? They're thoroughly surrounded. They have no escape. You've underestimated them. Look at the swordsmen on board. And Lilith looks at Zoro, and Zoro is just calmly holding on to Enma right now, prepared to fight. The only two people who are fully ready to fight right now is Robin and Zoro. They understand the situation, and they are very prepared to fight before anything else happens. While Sanji is losing his mind over how beautiful Lilith is, and Usopp and Nami are losing their minds over all the big monsters that's surrounding them right now. It even has Nami holding on and wrapped around Robin, while Usopp is like running scared, and then Frankie is still losing his mind over all these technological advancements he's seeing. Zoro and Robin are the only calms in the storm, and they're prepared to fight right now. But this Shaka person says that's pirate hunter Zoro, worth a bounty of 1.111 billion berries. The reason he's calmly hanging back is because he knows he can slaughter you in an instant from that range. And given how much of a buff Zoro basically gained during Wano, he's very capable of killing anyone from any distance. He doesn't have to get close to people. Especially with his new King of Hell's three-sword style, he doesn't need to worry about really getting all close up to you in order for him to be affected. And Lilith notices and looks at Zoro, and Shaka says the same goes for the demon child behind him, Nico Robin. But what would they do about all the sea beast weapons around them? They might, the mighty always determine the first foe they should strike. You ought to think harder. So the talkative jokers are just a distraction? I didn't pay close enough attention. And then Zoro says, "Hey, Vegapunk, we got some demands and you're going to listen. Got that?" And Shaka, who is called Punk number 0, Dr. Vegapunk Shaka the Good, says, "That's fine, bring them here. I happen to have an interest in them." So the fact that Vegapunk has an interest in the Straw Hat crew, it is by no mere coincidence that they found themselves on Egghead Island right now. It's by no mere coincidence that of all the crews to land on Egghead Island first, the Straw Hat crew gets there and it's like, "Oh yeah, this is the Straw Hat crew I'm interested in. I'm glad they're here now." Then it cuts to Luffy and Bonnie as Luffy says, "You say you've been here before?" And Bonnie says, "When I was a kid, it was a normal lab back then. And what did you come back for?" Depending on his answer, Vegapunk will have to die for his crimes. Vegapunk turned my father into a cyborg, and at this point, he's lost most sense of humanity. He doesn't even know who he is anymore. He's been turned into a pure, unthinking, living weapon. And here you see the faces of Kuma, who at the time I was wondering, what's the relationship between Kuma and Bonnie? We find out in the next chapter, which is very significant for Bonnie as a character and Kuma as a character. We even get a little bit more exposition about Kuma in the next chapter. And Jinbei says that's a terrible thing to suffer. And as they're making their way down, they get into a room that's just full of giant futuristic objects everywhere, like a giant space dragon and entire buildings just sitting up on bubble stalks. It's like it has a very Disney feel to the environment that they're in, but it's also futuristic at the same time. And everyone's losing their, Chopper and Luffy are the ones losing their minds. And it turns out that that Juri Bonnie has in fact met Sabo in Marijois, but decides to hold back that information for right now, saying that it's not important for her to bring that up. And as Luffy's going around trying to, latch onto different things and see how cool they are, he goes towards one of these giant space dragon looking creatures, and it appears to eat him, but it shows Luffy shooting out the other end as if he's passed straight through him. And then they see some food, and they try to jump at the food, and there's literally nothing there. And both Chopper, all three of them, Chopper, Bonnie, and Luffy, launch at this, big, giant dessert parfait, and they fall right through it. And they all get upset at the fact that they can't eat it, and they're trying to chomp on it and everything. But it turns out it's a hologram. Everything in this place, well, not everything in this place, but the big space dragon and the food, all of this stuff is a hologram. And it gets Luffy so upset that he almost goes gear 3rd, or at least he almost goes gear 5, just a little bit from the amount of anger that he's feeling that it's not real food. And as they're looking around, we get introduced to a brand new person that says this is a tropical place, although it is indeed a winter island. Thanks to the island AC I created, we can control the temperature of the island itself. Because Jinbei notices, I just noticed something. The sea was cold here, and yet everything just feels tropical. Like they don't feel the cold of them. Because Egghead is a winter island. Everything is freezing around them. Frozen rain and stuff like that. It's just cold all around. But everything inside of this building is perfectly regulated and perfectly temperatured. Yo, what's going on? Cool drip. Well, thank you. It's an Aggie shirt, but thank you. I wanted to wear something different than just a regular graphic tee. I wanted to at least look professional in the face of me, dude. In the face of me doing my little reflections today. I couldn't even get the accent out. My apologies. But good to see you, Ogata-san. We're going through chapter 1062. We are currently on pages 12 and 13 as Jinbei and company get introduced to Vegapunk Atlas. And we already got explained that the island has its own entire AC. The entire island has a whole mess, has a whole hub of temperature control over the entire island itself. Now, it may look frozen on the outside, but on the inside where everything is happening, everything is just properly regulated. And then Luffy goes, you're one of those hollow 2s, huh? And this is one thing to note, that Luffy remembers Perona's hollow fruit powers from Thriller Bark. Because him passing through those holograms reminded him of the ghosts that passed through him in Thriller Bark that made him, feel overly negative. So as soon as he passed through the hologram, he was reminded of Perona's devil fruit power. You're one of those hollows too, huh? And he tries to punch Atlas, but Atlas winds up punching Luffy, leaving his face swollen after knocking him into like a machine that can basically create any types of food on the spot. And it creates a hamburger meal with a drink and fries. Sounds really good. That actually sounds good. I might get that later. But they start eating the food, Bonnie, Luffy, and Chopper, and they're just eating the food, enjoying themselves, finally happy that they finally get to eat food instead of the holographic parfait that was in front of them. And Atlas continues to talk, saying as long as there's enough food material, I can provide 500 different meals to a person, to the user, each in under a minute. The whip up leftovers mode is the best part, but only if you make it exactly to the plans. There aren't enough technicians to mass produce them. Though, it makes me so mad. And Atlas punches the dragon itself, even though it's a hologram. Due to the special light pressure gloves that Atlas has on, she's able to even hurt other holograms as if they're tangible, which is quite unique. I'm wondering the purpose behind being able to hit holograms. Like, what use would that be? Unless, I'm already thinking of applications that being able to touch and hit holograms would be. You could use that perfectly for training. Instead of training yourself against an actual person and risking injuring the person, you can just train with a hologram and using the light pressure gloves, you can actually hit the person and see the effects it has on them without having to worry about actually injuring the person. I can already see the potentiality of holograms. It's quite useful. But Atlas continues to say, same thing with the island AC. Controlling the temps means being able to sense the life patterns of every living thing on the island. Spend a little more money and we could control the weather. The world doesn't have enough tech or funding. And then it cuts to one robot that pops up going, the moment people can touch something, they'll believe it's real. They'll believe that it's real matter. They'll believe that it's real matter. Saying like, that lady's not real? So waving to a person, a hologram that just shows up, but it's not real. And Atlas continues going, whether it's real or not is for you to decide. If you ask me, those words are a relic of a bygone age. And that's when Jinbei asks who this person is, and we find out that this is Dr. Vegapunk Atlas. The one we met beforehand was Dr. Vegapunk Lilith. This one is Vegapunk Atlas. And Vegapunk Atlas has a 6 on them, even though it's supposed to be 5. That's an error that Oda noted in like a little footnote after this chapter went out. And then it shows Jewelry Bonnie looking, going, no way, what's this liar talking about? Knowing that this is not the Vegapunk that she's so used to and knows. And then it cuts to Luffy going, you're Vegapunk? I know that name. And it cuts to Luffy and Chopper almost choking on their food because Luffy knows that this is a name that even Kobe knows. Sorry, something on my eye. And after they're talking with Vegapunk Atlas, we cut to the new world. We cut to CP0. We cut to Stussy, Kaku, and Lucci, who just show up as they're going. As Kaku explains, all right, Lucci, listen up. There's only one Vegapunk, but he's such a genius, he doesn't have enough time to do everything. He's short-handed, you see. So he thought, why not make more hands? He split himself into 6 different people, which kind of confirms my suspicions because you can't run an entire island like Egghead. And a whole island just by yourself, and that's it. I mean, it's possible, but if you're a super mega genius like Vegapunk, why make yourself go through all that when you can just split yourself up and designate them to do several different things all at once? So this confirmed my suspicions that Vegapunk actually split himself up, kind of like how Father did into the homunculi of Full Metal Alchemist. And he has each individual Vegapunk aspect running all of Egghead. Which harkens back to when Lilith says, I'm not the Stella, I'm not the main body. It already gave us a clue as to what Lilith actually is. And Kaku basically confirms anyone who paid attention to that line. I'm not going to say that I paid attention to that line because I didn't realize that until about halfway through the chapter, that Vegapunk has split his mind up in several different ways for him to completely govern and run the island. But Kaku says, in other words, these 6 satellites are all Dr. Vegapunk together. And because I don't believe in any of this nonsense, I'm the crazy one. What a hassle a so-called genius can be. Now, mind you, on this chart, it has Dr. Vegapunk and then branching lines that go down to all of the different Vegapunks that inhabit his overall personality and aspect. So, here we have Dr. Vegapunk. Then punk number 1 is Shaka the Good. Then punk number 2 is Lilith the Evil. We have punk number 3, who's Edison the Thinker. Punk number 4, who's Pythagoras the Wisdom. Punk number 5, who is Atlas the Violence. And lastly, we have punk number 6, who is York the Greed. Now, mind you here, it lists Atlas as punk number 5, but in a previous page, it showed her being number 6. That is the error that Oda had up there, where he drew a 6 on Atlas instead of a 5, and I think he said he was going to fix that for the volumes itself, but these are the aspects of the mind of Vegapunk separated into separate artificial bodies that govern and run numerous things and do different things all around Egghead. And as they're sailing in, we have a brand new seraphim that's with them, that's in the face and make of Kuma. Now, beforehand, we've already seen a Boa Hancock seraphim and a Mihawk seraphim that attacked Amazon Lily. And the Mihawk seraphim was strong enough to put Blackbeard on edge. And it's also strong enough to completely slice through half of the mountain of Amazon Lily that has stood the test of time for countless years. So now we have a brand new seraphim, which confirms a lot of people's suspicions that this whole seraphim project was just them basically cloning all the warlords, but to be complete pacifistas that obey their every commands. Kuma was the catalyst, where he gave up his own humanity to become the first pacifista. Vegapunk pretty much updated that program with the seraphim and created, well, the same type warlords that we've seen beforehand, but they're completely subservient to the world government. Now, whether they stay in this childlike state or they can age remains to be seen. But given their power at this young, and despite their young stature, I'd imagine they keep them at this kid stage. But they're basically just the warlords that are under control of the world government now. So we got to be careful of York and Edison. Yeah. We got to be careful of Edison because he's the thinker. He's probably the smartest one out of all of them, outside of Dr. Vegapunk himself. But Edison is one you need to watch out for, and York is probably going to be the one you watch out for. I'm not worried about Pythagoras, and I'm not worried about Shaka, because they seem to be the ones that are possibly more level-headed and morally level-headed than the rest of them. But Edison and York seem to be the ones that probably think on a very, well, I feel like Edison may be the one who thinks on the most analytical level, while York probably does things for the sake of greed. And those are probably going to be the aspects of Vegapunk that you really need to watch out for. But the reason why Lucci and company are heading to Egghead, because they're going to Egghead. They're under orders to go to Egghead. The reason why they're going to Egghead is because apparently Vegapunk has outlived his usefulness. The world government no longer has any use for Vegapunk. After countless years of employing this man to give them technological advancements to make the world government stronger, to make the world government the leading body of power in all the world, giving all these advancements to the Marines, giving them the pacifistas, giving them the Seraphim pacifistas, all the advancements that Vegapunk has given the world government, now apparently his contract's up. They no longer have any use for him. And the only use there is for Vegapunk after no longer being useful to the world government is to silence him. Because the world government does not need a mind as brilliant as Vegapunk making anything that could ruin their position. So what do you do when you have the world's smartest man, use him for all he's worth, and then you no longer need him? You get rid of him because you don't want him working against you. So the only answer is to kill him because that's what they're there for. They're going to eliminate the Vegapunks, all of them. And be careful with his lab, it's full of valuable things. And Lucci goes, they want us to eliminate the most useful man in the world, and does this have anything to do with what happened in Lelougia the other day? And the fact that they know what happened to Lelougia, even though we were told, don't cut all communications with the island. Nothing happened in Lelougia. Lelougia never existed. The fact that Lucci knows and is curious and asking questions, Stussy retorts by saying the last thing a man as keenly perceptive as you should be doing is looking for answers. And Kaku ends the chapter by going, exactly, don't drag us into your trouble, Lucci. And firstly, what type of trouble would Lucci be getting himself into asking these sort of questions? The fact that he knows there's something going on and he's suspicious about it all. Firstly, He finds it hard to believe that Vegapunk was able to split his mind up into separate bodies, while he himself is a man who can turn into a leopard, and an hybrid of the two, and he can also fly in the air. And, you know, he can... Lucci does things that seem otherworldly, but the idea of the world's smartest man being able to split his personality into separate robot bodies so he can run his island is the one thing that seems inescapably impossible to him. Or that's the thing that seems outlandish. This man got punched by a 16-year-old kid who was able to punch him through a solid wall with a giant fist. A giant enlarged rubber fist. But the thought of Vegapunk splitting his mind up into separate bodies is the one thing that seems outlandish to him. He's literally sailing with a clone of a former warlord that is also part Lunarian as well. But Vegapunk splitting his mind up is the very concept that escapes him for some odd reason. And how far G14 base is from Egghead, I wonder how close CP0 are to the island. A day, a couple of hours, and how far G14 base is from Egghead. That's the thing. We don't know the exact distance of how far away these different islands are. Luffy was 17 when they fought. Yeah, I had a feeling it was either 16 or 17. I had a feeling. I couldn't remember. It was very scarce. I was close. I was close, though. I was close. But the remark still stands where Lucci has seen ridiculous happen, yet Vegapunk splitting his mind into separate bodies is the thing that escapes him. That's just what I'm saying. So, and not only that, but Lucci being part of CP0, the most feared and most secretive group in the world government, which has access to countless amounts of information. I'm pretty sure he sees ridiculous things all the time. Yet Vegapunk splitting his mind into separate bodies is crazy to him. Did he forget? I know I'm harping on this a lot, but it's like, you kind of live in a very weird world. Your co-worker is a man who can turn into a giraffe. But you don't find that ridiculous. I don't know. Maybe he's a I'll believe it when I see it type of individual. But that's the end of chapter 1062. So I'm going to pull up One Piece 1062 and go over the chapter notes real quick. And I think I may have gone over it already. Yeah. Chapter notes, most of the Straw Hat Pirates converse with the woman claiming to be Vegapunk. The woman is known as Lilith. The Thousand Sunny is surrounded by mecha sea beasts. Lilith attempts to rob the Straw Hats of their valuables to help fund their research, but is called off by Shaka, who warns Lilith about their power as the crew of an emperor. Zoro wants to request something from Vegapunk, and Shaka orders Lilith to bring the Thousand Sunny to them due to having an interest in the Straw Hat Pirates. Bonnie's mission in Egghead is to get revenge on Vegapunk for turning Bartholomew Kuma into a cyborg. Hey, I said his name right without having to correct myself. Revealing the latter is actually her father. Bonnie is personally familiar with Vegapunk, having once visited Egghead as a child. Bonnie met up with Sabo while at Marijois, but decides to postpone telling Luffy about it. What information did she get from Sabo? Luffy's group go to the surface of Egghead, and they discover a futuristic theme park-like area. They encounter a very tall young girl called Atlas, who also uses the name Vegapunk. On a ship, a CP0 squad consisting of Lucci, Kaku, Stussy, and a Seraph resembling Kuma discuss their mission. It is revealed that Vegapunk created 6 copies, referred to as satellites of himself. These include Lilith, Shaka, and Atlas. The other 3 satellites are known as Edison, Pythagoras, and York. The CP0 mission is to eliminate Vegapunk and all of his copies. And Lucci thinks the mission could be connected to Lelouja Kingdom's destruction. So that's very interesting when you think about it. Lucci is wondering, is this any way connected to what happened to Lelouja? Is what we're about to do connected to Lelouja so nothing can be traced back to the world government? I think that's what it is. Yo, it's what it is. Something about destroying the Lelouch kingdom is prompting the world government to go to Egghead and eliminate Vegapunk for some reason. Because why would they risk? Why would they get rid of the contract relationship that they're in with Vegapunk unless something happened on Lelouch that could be traced back to Vegapunk, that can be traced back to the world government? I know I'm just out there right now just thinking about it, but why get rid of their biggest, most scientific, most logical scientific advantage in all of the One Piece world if something connected to them in Vegapunk that can make them look bad could be brought up by Vegapunk on Egghead? Because the world government loves to cover their tracks. They love to eliminate any means of losing favor in the public eye of the world, that they are willing to put people's lives in danger and even destroy entire kingdoms in order for them to remain the light that resides in the world. I remember when Luffy called Buggy a freak because of his devil fruit power, and that's coming from a rubber man. Yeah. Luffy, a lot of people are very, what do you call it? What is that sentence where you're oblivious to obvious information? I can't remember the word. Tekking did a video yesterday regarding CP0 and their mission. I have not watched that video yet. I may watch it later. But that's all the information that we get from chapter 1062. At least the big, significant tidbits of it. So let's move on to 1063, which is titled chapter 1063, My Only Family. And in the cover page here, we find out, well, not necessarily find out, but we kind of learn. And we kind of learn that the whole, in the cover story, that Chocolate Town has been completely frozen over. We find out who it is in the next cover story. But this chapter pretty much starts with Luffy, Jewelry Bonnie, and Chopper stuffing themselves full of food. And Atlas is going, "You sure ate your fill. All four of you are stuffed to bursting." Looking at Jinbei, who's just big, who's just a big individual, and he's all like, "No, I always look like this." Then we have a Recycoli, which is basically a robot dog that eats up the scraps and stuff that is just all over the floor, because covered in the floor is just countless amounts of plates and different things from Luffy and company eating tons and tons of food. And then it cuts to Atlas as she goes, "Well, I gotta go, need to get back to my job, violence." And as she jets off, she flies off, punching the holographic dragon in the process. And then Chopper sees some people walking down a pathway. So there are people here, but they're like different individuals. And Bonnie says, "Well, it's a research lab. Maybe they're researchers?" And Jinbei says, "There was no one here before, but now the town's full of people. Perhaps they were wary of us before." And then Bonnie says they're wearing heavy clothes for such a tropical place because everyone is dressed up in heavy, big winter coats and just covered head to toe. And then it cuts to Luffy getting manhandled by something, and he pops out, and it shows Luffy in a brand new outfit. And he says, "Wow, it's so light and breezy." Wait, and then everyone else starts to change. Everyone else starts to change into new Vegapunk style gear. Jewelry Bonnie changes up her clothes. Chopper does the same. And Jinbei changes up his clothes, and he gets a Aloha shirt. Not a Hawaiian shirt, because Hawaii does not exist in One Piece. But he gets an Aloha shirt. And as that's going on, he's eating food. And we get a tall individual who's up above them, who sees them go into this little fashion chamber where they change all the clothes, saying, "Hey, wait." And it shows that it's a large man who looks exactly like Kuma, but he has police over the front of his clothes. And it cuts to Luffy, who notices going, "I see the bear." "A bear? And I wonder if he's looking for us, or is it my imagination?" And Luffy, using Future Sight, goes, "Let's move, he's gonna run." And then this person who looks like Kuma immediately starts barreling towards them after Luffy sees this. And then he opens his mouth and prepares to shoot a laser cannon like a classic pacifista that we've seen. And he says, eating without payment, theft of clothing. And then they're like wondering, like, what? We actually needed money for this? And he shoots in their direction, and they kind of get blasted a little bit. And they're all like, but it just popped out when I kicked the machine. Sounds like property damage to me. Is that supposed to get the death penalty? Seems like excessive punishment. We gotta fight back before he gets the best of us. It's justified self-defense if you ignore the part about us being pirates. Sounds good, sorry man. And it shows Luffy jumping up, preparing to use Gear 3rd on this pacifista. And Bonnie sees this, and she comes in and proceeds to just fully kick Luffy, like she loops around and like with a heel kick, a swirling heel kick, a whirling heel kick. She kicks Luffy directly in the face and knocks him to the side before the pacifista can actually blast him with another blast. And Luffy's all like, hey, what was that for? He was shooting a laser. I should at least get to punch him. And Luffy looks at Bonnie. As Bonnie looks at this pacifista preparing to blast where they are again, she looks into this Kuma's eyes. And she says, that's my daddy. And he's my only family. And this shocks all of them. Luffy, Chopper, and Jimbo are all like, what? So the dad who got turned into a cyborg was Kuma? Please, I'm begging you, please don't hurt my daddy. And it shows Bonnie crying her eyes out as we see like a little small image right next to her showing Kuma when he was younger and he had a baby, a young child, Bonnie in his hands. And this is where Kuma's smiling. You don't see Kuma smiling with like a big tooth grin before. He's just smiling with her. And he has like glasses on. And it still makes me wonder, is Kuma's eyes actually his eyes, or are they glasses that, or are they lenses that were replaced? But as this happens, Luffy says, run, dummy, because it shows, wow, that's something I never noticed. Bonnie is actually, that's something I never noticed during my initial run. It shows Luffy saying, run, dummy, as he's launching towards Jewelry Bonnie, and as this pacifista starts to shoot his blast directly at Bonnie, who's just down in a heap on her knees. I never noticed that the explosion that happened was the fact that this pacifista was aiming at Bonnie the entire time, and Luffy was trying to jump in to save her. We don't see what happens, but we just see the resulting explosion that happens when this pacifista, when this Kuma, aims and shoots at Bonnie. We don't see anything that happens afterwards. We just see the explosion that happens that takes like a good chunk of the island out of where they are. Then it cuts back to a stretch of sea in the New World, where apparently Law and his crew are underwater and they got hit, as we get as the Blackbeard pirates are going after Law's crew. And as this is going on, it's revealed that Law and Beppo have been turned into women. And it shows Shachi has been turned into a woman as well. And as she's holding on, and as Shachi is holding on to Penguin, Penguin turns into a woman because it's an infection that just moved through. As Law goes, don't touch anyone who's already got it. This power can infect other people. It'll change your gender. But I've learned something in that Emperor fight. You can break through those powers. Those powers can't withstand intense enough haki. And as Law focuses the haki in himself, it allows him to break free of this infection and returned him back into being a male again. And it also shows the Polar Tang, after getting knocked underwater, it shows the Polar Tang surfacing again. And then we see Doc Q as he goes, oh, so you broke through the disease. He's worth $3 billion for a reason. And once he's broken through, his antibodies will spread just as the illness did. Did you have fun with the feminization disease? Then we get Van Augur, who's there with Jesus Burgess. Now, the thing about Jesus Burgess is the fact that he has a new constructive mask. He has a new face brace. Not just his classic mask is on one side, but also on the other side, it's like fashioned to keep his face together because Sabo literally broke his head when they fought back in Dressrosa. Burgess's face is still not fine. It had to be braced up all the way on the left side because that's how badly Sabo messed him up. But Van Auger says, Burgess, we're moving to the island. And Burgess says, okay. And both of them just disappear from sight. And then they appear on the island with Burgess picking up an entire mountain and preparing to throw it at Law's crew. Now, the thing to go through here that made me lose my mind when I went through this was the fact that all three of them now have new devil fruit powers. Doc Q has the sick fruit, which basically allows him to make a disease of any type that he chooses. He is the end boss that Chopper has to face, since Chopper has the dream of wanting to cure any disease. Then we have Van Auger, the ship's sniper, who now has the warp fruit, which allows him to teleport himself and other people to basically any location that he sees. I feel like the caveat is that he has to see the location. He can't just instantly think of Logetown and then teleport there, or teleport to Jaya and then think of Jaya and then teleport there. I think there's some caveat. He has to see where he's aiming at. Kind of like how Nightcrawler works a little bit. And then Jesus Burgess, who I was wondering if he had like a devil fruit at first, and he does. Well, actually, it wasn't me who thought it. It was some people who thought he actually had it. But then I reminded them that Burgess fell into the water after Sabo destroyed the arena, and he was fine in the water, and he was seen later, and he had no trouble being in the water. So that means that all the things that we saw him do during Dressrosa was just his natural strength, which has been enhanced even more because he now has a devil fruit power called the strong fruit that gives his already overly human and impressive physique, his overly human and impressive feats of strength, a massive boost because now he's able to lift up an entire mountain. So it's like, now the Blackbeard pirates are fundamentally more overpowered than they've ever been before. Now, let me just pull this up real quick. I want to make sure I have the page. But they all have powers now. All three of them have powers now. The only people that we haven't seen a power for are Vasco Shot and Avalo Pizarro. And then it cuts to Law and his crew looking at Burgess as he proceeds to pick up an entire mountain, going, super strength, contagion, teleportation, all of these preposterous powers they've gained through hunting down devil fruits. No wonder their bounties just keep rising. Now, mind you, it doesn't give us the bounties of Doc Q, Van Auger, or Jesus Burgess, who all have very specifically drawn and written names. Doc Q has a name that looks like it's like sickly. Van Auger has one that's emboldened for his name, and Burgess has a name that just seems like something you would see on a WWE title card for the next fighter who's running up. So they all have the unique ways that their names are written to reintroduce themselves in this chapter. And back in Dressrosa, Blackbeard said he was going to eat the Mero Mero no Mi on the Den Den Mushi. Exactly. There were some people who popped up saying, like, I thought he already had a power. But no, Burgess was there to get the Mero Mero no Mi, but couldn't. So there's absolutely no way he could have had power beforehand if Teach wanted him to eat a fruit when he got there. So that's just another thing to harken back to Dressrosa to confirm that Burgess never had a power. It's just been his pure brute strength this whole time. So now he has a devil fruit power that just makes him inhumanly strong. Inhumanly stronger. So yeah, we don't even know the upper limits of it because we don't even get more displays of it or a full-on description from Burgess. We just know that they have it. But we haven't seen like the full capabilities of these fruits yet, and that's one I can't wait to read. I love reading up on devil fruit powers and what they can do, what they can't do, how strong they are. I could spend hours just reading through them because I like that type of information. Y'all know I do. But then it shows Burgess throwing the mountain at Law and company, Law using Room and slicing it apart, and then it shows Blackbeard, who's on the back of Stronger and Doc Q, challenging Law. And here we also see that Stronger, the horse, has a devil fruit power as well, allowing him to fly. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hold on, hold on. What is the name of the horse that we saw in Sky Island? Hold on. Hold on. What is the name of the flying horse that we see in Skull Island? Ah, Pierre. It's Pierre. It's Pierre. The horse is called. It's not a horse, but it was a bird. It was a bird. I had to remind myself what it was called. But it's Pierre. Yes, Pierre. It's a bird that can turn into a horse. Okay. Pierre from Sky Island is... Yeah, Pierre can turn into a horse. I was about to think, like, oh, I hope they didn't do anything to Pierre. So I had to remind myself. Which... I had to remind myself which character it was. It's not the same fruit as in Skypiea. Yeah, don't worry, Okada-san. I looked it up. Pierre is a bird that ate the horse fruit, whereas Stronger ate a mythical version of that fruit. So Pierre has the base model, whereas Stronger has the mythical Pegasus model. Kind of like how Chopper has the base model of the Hito Hito no Mi, and we've seen the different variations thus far. But Stronger has a devil fruit that allows him to basically turn into a Pegasus, giving him the ability to fly. And here, Blackbeard calls out Law, saying, "It's been a while, Trafalgar Law. Don't be so cold to your fellow worst generation. Straw Hat Kid or you, I knew that one of you, I feel like part of me wants to go into his old accent, was going to sail here for Wano. Go figure that Kaido and Big Mom fell. You turned the whole world upside down. It's been a blast." Of course, Kaido would have at least one. And how many of you found? I'll take all of your rope poneglyphs. And Law says, same to you. In this fight, winner takes all. So, this chapter was like, oh, Oda's really going knee deep into giving us big battles already. Like, who would have thought that we would have a chapter where Law would be facing off against Blackbeard? Who would have thought that we would see that Doc Q, Van Augur, and Burgess would all get powers? We didn't think that we would be getting this type of chapter the moment we were... Like, the moment we start getting into Egghead, and then we cut to a whole big moment with Blackbeard. And I'm like... Oh, so Oda's on a 10. Like, Oda's going to be on a 10 for every chapter. Is that how this is going to go? So, going through the notes here, Atlas leaves Luffy's group. Luffy finds a machine which allows his group to change their clothes. After exploring the area, Luffy's group is confronted by a pacifista resembling Kuma, working as law enforcement, which attacks them as it turned out that the foods and the clothes are not free. Bonnie stops Luffy from fighting due to its resemblance to Kuma, breaking down in tears as the pacifista continues its attack. This causes Luffy's group to realize that Kuma is Bonnie's father. Elsewhere, the Blackbeard pirates attack the Heart Pirates. Their target is the road poneglyph etchings that the Heart Pirates have. The Polar Tang is badly damaged as a result of the attack, because you see the inside of the Polar Tang, and they're already leaking water on the inside from the damage that Blackbeard is doing with the Guro no Mi, including a brand new attack that I'm going to read the description out of. The description of once I get to it. Yeah, once I get to it, we'll read out this new attack that Blackbeard has. Ever since he's had the Guro no Mi, this is the first time we see him actually using a named attack for the Guro side. We already know about the Yami Yami no Mi, but the Guro he hasn't really used all that often. Elsewhere, the Blackbeard Pirates attack the Heart Pirates. Their target is the road poneglyph etchings that the Heart Pirates have. The Polar Tang is badly damaged as a result. Jesus, Burgess, Van Augur, Doc Q, and Stronger now have Devil Fruit powers, with the latter three making their first appearance since the time skip. Burgess now has the Riki Riki no Mi that grants him additional superhuman strength. Augur now has the Wapu Wapu no Mi that gives him teleportation powers. Dakyu now has the Shiku Shiku no Mi that causes him to infect people with diseases. He uses this power to temporarily gender swap the Heart Pirates. Law reveals that after his fights with Big Mom and Kaido, he has learned that if one possesses Haki that is powerful enough, that it can reverse the effects of Devil Fruit powers, which is used to nullify the effects of Dakyu's attack. This harkens back to what Kaido said during Wano. We see all these different insurmountably powerful powers throughout all of One Piece, from Logias to mythical types and everything in between. But the one key thing that sticks in my head ever since Kaido said it during Wano is only Haki can transcend all. No matter what type of power we've seen thus far, if your Haki is strong enough, you can overcome that power. Logias, who are seen as some of the most overpowered Devil Fruit users in all of One Piece, their powers can easily be nullified by a person with superior grade Haki. The intangibility, the invulnerability that regular Logias can have, that makes it so that no one can touch them at all, can easily be circumnavigated by a person's Haki. And now we're learning in this chapter that if your Haki is strong enough, you can completely nullify a Devil Fruit's effect. So, for normal people, they would have nothing, they wouldn't stand a chance against Q, because one, they probably don't have any trained Haki and they wouldn't be able to do that. But if your Haki is strong enough, you can completely nullify a Devil Fruit's effects on you. That is something that's monumental, and that's something I don't really hear or see people talking about a lot more often. The very thing that can give people an edge over not just Logia powers, not just the intangibility nullification or anything, but completely nullify a Devil Fruit's effects. If your Haki is strong enough. That alone makes Haki the most supreme power in all of One Piece, because no matter what type of Devil Fruit power that you see, if a person's Haki is strong enough, they can nullify it. Another example of superior Haki is how Shanks' Conqueror's Haki was strong enough to make a Logia user completely come out of their Logia state out of either one of two things, out of fear or the fact that Conqueror's Haki can force a Logia user back into their normal state. Either one of those two things. Either the person is scared, or Conqueror's Haki can go as far as completely nullifying Devil Fruit powers, to the point where it causes a Logia user to go back into their normal state. And part of me is leaning on the fact that Conqueror's Haki can get to that extent, allowing Devil Fruit powers to be nullified just from the sheer amount of force felt from that Conquerors. Because I don't think Ryokugyu was scared of Shanks. But I feel like Shanks' Conquerors was so strong that it forced him to go back into his normal state. Almost like he was touching Sea Prism Stone. So this chapter, along with other examples, now I gotta think about other examples of where people... Actually, you know what? What if Zoro cutting into Monet was like an early sign? I'm probably overthinking this. I'm probably overthinking this way too much. But yep, chapter 1047. This just harkens back to what Kaido said, only Haki can transcend all. Now, the reason why I say this is the fact that with Blackbeard presumably going to be one of the biggest end bosses to face off at the end of the series, and Luffy's going to be facing off against him, he has to. And Blackbeard being able to nullify Devil Fruit powers by touch, the only thing that Luffy is going to be able to use against Blackbeard is his own superior Haki that can nullify the Yami Yami no Mi. If Luffy's Haki can get to a point where he can nullify the effects of the Yami Yami no Mi, then that makes Blackbeard's confrontation all the more in Luffy's favor. That's how I feel. Because if Law is just telling us that Devil Fruit powers can be nullified if your Haki is strong enough, and Luffy already has some strong Haki, especially with him being able to use all 3 types, it's just making me think that if he can nullify the Yami Yami no Mi, then Blackbeard basically uses his biggest trump card against all Devil Fruit users. Because the Yami Yami no Mi only drains Devil Fruit powers. It can do nothing against Haki. Unless Blackbeard has a counter to Haki itself, there's nothing that's going to stop people who make it so that their Haki can nullify the Yami Yami no Mi and gets rid of Blackbeard's biggest advantage when it comes to fighting. It's got me thinking. It really does have me thinking. I'm sorry if I'm getting caught up in this, but the more I think about it, the more awesome it sounds. So going through this, actually, let me go back to it. Law reveals that after his fight with Big Mom and Kaido, he has learned that if one possesses Haki that is powerful enough, it can reverse the effects of Devil Fruit powers, which is used to nullify the effects of Doc Q's attack. Stronger now has a Uma Uma no Mi, model Pegasus, granting him the power of flight. And afterwards, after arriving at a nearby island, Law prepares to face off against Blackbeard with the robe poneglyph etchings as the reward. Now, the next chapter pretty much confirms a lot of people's suspicions. And a little bit of mine, but I wasn't 100% sure, in the cover story, where it's shown that it is in fact Kuzan, along with Van Augur, before all this stuff went down, that kidnapped Pudding and brought her on board the Blackbeard pirate ship, which just happens to be the same ship that the rest of them, the same ship that's just outside the island where Blackbeard and Law are currently facing down. Well, currently facing on. Chapter 1064, Egghead Labo Phase. So here we see Blackbeard fighting against Blackbeard fighting against Law, and we get a new character called Hakugan take the Polar Tang, and then Shachi Penguin into the sea, where Shachi and Penguin go underwater. And then Law uses his awakened abilities, and he uses Amputate and slices Stronger completely through the midsection, making it so that Blackbeard falls through the air. Now, mind you, Blackbeard is still over the sea. He's still over the sea flying towards Law right now. As he goes, I didn't hear that your powers could do that. Is that an awakened technique? Because, yeah, he doesn't know fully the events that happened on Wano, including Kid and Law using their own awakened techniques to take down Big Mom. So he's surprised to see that Law was able to do that to Stronger, and that's new to him. But then we see that Blackbeard has a new attack called Tremor Crush. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Marshall D. Teach, and I'm going to go to the Gura no Mi, and go down to Teach's techniques, and it's called Tremor Crush, or Gurash, or, yeah, it's called Gurash. Literally meaning quake break. Blackbeard slams the air with his fists, cracking it and creating shockwaves. This is similar to Whitebeard's Gekishin technique, although Blackbeard used the technique from long range against multiple enemies. Now, this is the first time we're getting an actual fully named and fully canon named attack for the Gura no Mi. All the other ones that we've had, they've all had names from different medias, or they had the description of the names and what it means, but it's never been an attack name actually used in the series because Whitebeard never named his attacks at all, neither during the Paramount War or during his time in the past in the Odin's flashback. But here's the first time we're getting an actual canonized name for the Gura no Mi attack. And the same attack that Blackbeard uses is essentially the same one that Whitebeard used against John Giant. But that was only at close range. Blackbeard's using that same attack, but he's able to use it at long range. He just cracks the air, and it just sends massive shock waves that hits the entire island, and it causes the entire island to shake. But yes, it's called Blackbeard slams the air with his fists, cracking it and creating shock waves. This is similar to Whitebeard's Gekishin technique, although Blackbeard used the technique from long range against multiple enemies. The name of the attack is likely a combination of Gura and Crash, or Crush. In the Viz translation, this is called Tremor Crush. And that's the only known name technique. And the only names that we get from is from, like, the video games. Like One Piece Burning Blood and One Piece Gigant Battle. And that's the only thing. But he shakes the entire island, and it causes everyone to fall towards the ground because of the amount of force that's being felt from it. And then Doc Q is screaming out saying, "No, are you dead stronger? Too bad, you were a good horse." And then a whole bunch of apples just falls out from a basket that Doc Q has, and it turns out that they are exploding apples. Then we have Shachi, who's swimming on the water, who expels a massive blast out of his mouth. Now, if I go down here to the long summary, so that's what he did. And I'm already... Wait, is that Penguin? Is that Penguin? I thought Shachi was the one that had, like, the orca hat. Or was it reverse? Have I been wrong this whole time? I've been wrong this whole time. Oh my goodness. Wait a minute. Hold up. Wait. Okay, if that's supposed to be Penguin, that's not Penguin though. Penguin doesn't have an orca hat. Penguin literally has a hat that says Penguin on the front. Did Shachi get a new help? Did Shachi get a new... Hold on. Wait a minute. Okay, so who's a member of the Heart Pirates who has like the... Yeah, this is Shachi. This isn't Penguin. So this is Penguin. So the wiki has it wrong. It's not Penguin who shoots out the torrent of water and destroys the exploding apples. It's Shachi who does it. So they're probably going to need to correct that. Because it says here, causing Blackbeard to fall off as he admits his surprise to Law's awakened abilities. Doc Q falls as well, but he manages to throw his basket of explosive apples at the Heart Pirates, only for Penguin, it's actually Shachi, to shoot a torrent of water at the bombs, destroying them in midair to Doc Q's shock. So yeah, they got it wrong. The wiki has it wrong. It's not Penguin who does that, it's Shachi who does that. I knew I was right. I was not crazy. I knew I wasn't crazy when I saw that. But Shachi comes out of the water, and he shoots a torrent of water out. And he shoots a torrent of water in front of the apples, and he blows up the entire apple basket, to, like I said, to the shock of Doc Q. And Shachi goes, "Don't mess with folks born and raised in a frigid North Blue port. And you won't get the best of us in a sea battle. We'll sink that ship of yours." And then it cuts to Beppo saying, "Jean Bart, sniper at 3 o'clock. Protect the captain, I've got him." And it shows Jean Bart taking a shot from Van Augur while Law is using Kroom behind him. And Van Augur is standing there in front of Jean Bart saying, well, tough guard to break. And it shows Law using Shockwill on Teach after having pierced his body with Kroom and using Shockwill on him, causing Blackbeard's body to explode from the inside, full of shockwaves and whatnot. And then it shows Blackbeard, who's still, and the thing is, Blackbeard is still in the air while all this is happening. After Law completely amputated Stronger with Amputate, he still manages to pierce Teach at the exact same time and use Shockwill on him, causing massive shockwaves to erupt inside of Blackbeard's body. Van Augur sees this and teleports over to where Blackbeard is and goes, this is what happens when you charge in without a plan. And he warps over to Teach and goes, "Shall we return to the ship, Commodore?" And Blackbeard says, "No, you fool, stay on the offensive." And he just starts laughing, even after having his inside shocked and moved around, which was enough to cause Big Mom immense pain. He just laughs it off and lands on the ground. After Van Augur, kind of pops him back in front of Law as everyone goes, "It's Blackbeard!" And Law goes, "So all of your officers have powers now," which means they all share the same weakness, the sea. And then Blackbeard just says, "But the benefits are worth the risk. That's how the devil fruits work." And it's like, when are we going to learn the ins and outs of devil fruits? I can't wait to learn more. That's what I want to know. I want to know more. And as that's going on, we cut to the ship of Blackbeard as more explosions happen, as it shows the Polar Tang and some other members of Law's crew swimming underneath it, trying to sink the ship. And then we cut to like a brig inside of the ship, and it turns out that Pudding is inside, who is now embracing her third eye, because at first she had her hair pulled in front because of how she was ridiculed, but after Sanji talked to her and said, like, "You know what, your eye is beautiful," she decided to part her hair, so now all three of her eyes can be seen. And then Pudding is as some of the members of the I was about to say Beast Pirates, Blackbeard Pirates are saying, like, "We're experiencing a little attack-related turbulence, but it'll pass soon. Our Commodore is the greatest." And then Pudding says, "If Mama is still alive, you won't be talking like that much longer." And then one dude is laughing, saying, "Well, the guy we're fighting now is the one who killed Big Mom. How's the new era supposed to get going if all the old legends are still kicking around?" Now, we don't see Pudding's expression when this person says that Law was the one who killed Big Mom, because her and Kaido's status is still left ambiguous. And it shows Law clashing with Blackbeard, as the last thing we see of this fight is Law. The cover story matches the chapter. This is a first in One Piece history. Yes, it is. The first time, that's the thing. The first time we see, well, actually, this is a first in One Piece history. This actually might be the second one, because Prince Gruss, who appeared in the Gangbei Oh My Family, and he appeared there trying to arrest Chiffon. He appeared in a later chapter as a person that Helmeppo and What's-Her-Face was pleading to in order to go rescue Kobe. So I feel like this may be the second one that's happened, where something that happened to the cover story leaked into the canon, into the main pages, just like right off the bat. Well, I wouldn't say right off the bat, but things that happened during a cover story. Actually, you know what? You're right. You're actually right, Ogata-san. Because the events that happen in the whole Prince Gruss and Gangbei Oh My Family don't exactly tie into the story of One Piece as a whole. I rescind what I just said, because this cover story of Pudding getting kidnapped, and then that same story continuing into the main pages as it continues showing Pudding kidnapped on the Blackbeard ship, that's actually, yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, you're right. This is a first, where a story that's happening inside of the cover page ties directly into the chapters that are happening right now. Wow. That's good. That's good. What was I saying? Dang it, I lost my train of thought. But the fight ends with Law looking kind of surprised as Blackbeard uses Black Vortex on Law. Now, mind you, I don't think Law knows about what happens when a person gets grabbed by the Yami Yami no Mi. I don't think he knows yet. So if Law gets grabbed, he won't be able to use the Ope Ope no Mi anymore. And then it just cuts to the Marineford base, the new Marineford headquarters, as a person goes on a Dende Mushi going, "A winner at Winter Island." Not a winner, but at Winter Island. The island they're on is called Winter Island. In the new world, Blackbeard the Emperor has made contact with Trafalgar Law. And it cuts to Akainu getting kind of fed up that there's so much trouble being dumped on his plate now that he's become Fleet Admiral, because I thought he must have thought it was going to be smooth sailing. He'll be able to eradicate pirates and just kind of work, but not to the point where it's just like stress-filled every single second for him, which was not what he was accounting for. And here I am once again waiting for a fight to conclude. Nobody told me that being Fleet Admiral would be so frustrating. See, that's what you get when you see the job, but you don't understand the logistics of doing that job. All you saw was a position where you could just eradicate pirates in the name of absolute justice. Now, you're basically the very job that you thought was going to help you rid the world of pirates. All you can really do is just sit on your hands, because how long Akainu hasn't been able to do anything that he would like to do as Fleet Admiral ever since he became Fleet Admiral. Every single major event that has been going on in One Piece, after Akainu has become Fleet Admiral, has made him sit and wait, which is something that he absolutely hates to do, because he's the confrontational type. He doesn't mind getting his hands dirty if it means eradicating the world of pirates. But ever since he's become Fleet Admiral, he's been put in constant situations where he has no choice but to wait. The first major thing that kind of struck a nerve with him was the fact that the Gorosei covered up that Doflamingo's resignation from the warlords was a fabrication. Got left out of that. Couldn't move on that. Then we find out the events of, what was it? The next big event where he was wondering what was going on, but couldn't do anything about it, was when the crew was in Wano. But he couldn't move because they had no idea of the strength of the samurai of Wano due to the fact that they're not affiliated with the world government, but their entire country is closed off to them, leaving the world government unable to, see things for themselves and kind of gauge whether or not they can send forces there. They tried, but that wound up being destroyed by the Big Mom pirates. Now, he's in another situation where he has no choice but to wait for the outcome once again, and he can't do anything, and that annoys him. And all the while, Garp and Sengoku are having the biggest laughs of their lives, realizing we tried to keep this guy from getting into the position of Fleet Admiral, but here he is, struggling to be Fleet Admiral, where he can't take direct action. He's a very direct type person. He was a person that showed up in order to confront the Blackbeard pirates and Jewelry Bonnie, knowing full well just what powers Blackbeard now has after taking the Guruguru no Mi from Whitebeard. He's the kind of person that will be all like, fine, I'll do it myself. He's literally the person that says, if you can't do it right, if you can't do it, if you can't do it right, then do it. If they can't, what is it? What is the phrase? I'm getting it mixed up. What is it? I'm trying to remember the exact phrase, the exact words. If you want something done right, do it yourself. Why was I struggling with that saying? I use that saying all the time. Neil Johnson, member for 8 months. Firstly, thank you, Neil Johnson, for being a member that long. I'm like, bruh. I'm still surprised that I see members. I still have members on my channel, but I'm incredibly thankful. And Neil Johnson also says, when Akainu does get up from behind his desk, he's gonna go hard, like letting the pressure off a compressed spring. That's the thing. Akainu is waiting on the moment where he can actually do something. If you want something done right, do it yourself. Yes, Neil. It came to my mind. It came to my mind the moment I was thinking about it, but I got it. But Akainu, Oda's setting us up. I just realized that Oda is setting us up. When you think about it, Oda has shown Akainu stuck at the new Marineford headquarters all this time, never leaving. And for all intents and purposes, Oda probably has people thinking that Akainu's never going to do anything. But I feel like the moment where Akainu's finally going to leave the new Marineford headquarters and throw hands, I feel like that's the moment. I don't know when that moment's going to happen. But I feel like Oda is really starting to set us up to have that type of moment. All these moments where we see Akainu and he's just stuck at headquarters, never going anywhere. But I feel like Oda's setting us up so when it's time for Akainu to get up and says like, I'm done waiting, I'm gonna take care of this myself. And he calls in Ryokugyu, he calls in Fujitora, and he calls in Kizaru. I forgot, Kizaru's still a thing. He's still an admiral, he's still there. When he's done trying to wait for things to happen, he's all like, I'm not gonna wait here any longer, I'm gonna go. Get all the admirals. We're going over there. And it's like, I don't think we're ready for that confrontation, because I don't know how much more powerful Akainu has become since the time skip. Who knows if he's even had any moments to actually improve his power over time. I don't know. I mean, for all intents and purposes, he could be awakened like Kuzan, which explains this current state of Punk Hazard. So I'd imagine his power may have grown if they're able to leave an entire island in a hot, cold, permanent state like that. But when Akainu gets up from his desk, as Neil Johnson clearly stated, that is when everyone should be scared. Because this is the dude that does not care about collateral damage. He doesn't care about collateral damage. He is not like Fujitora, who sees the civilians' lives as important. If a pirate's life is behind civilians, if it means destroying that pirate, then Akainu is the type of person who will go through those civilians to get to that pirate and kill them. Even if lives are lost, innocent lives are lost in the process. In the name of absolute justice, the only thing that matters is the eradication of pirates. This is the type of ideology that the world government appointed Akainu to, thinking that he was going to be that big, massive driving force that made it so that pirates are less likely to buck up against them. But unfortunately, due to Akainu just basically having to deal with waiting all this time, he has no choice but, I feel like his influence isn't as strong. The only person who really responds strongly to Akainu is Ryokugyu, who we find out is a massive fanboy to him. I don't know if Akainu knows that he's got a fanboy in one of his admirals, but that's the only person who really looks like they've had like a massive impact in their behavior based on Akainu. That's it. Everyone else just behaves like they normally have. Nothing has changed on a fundamental level for the world government and the Navy ever since Akainu came into power. Even though they say like the Navy has become a lot more ruthless, I haven't really seen much of that ruthlessness, you know? Like, we were told that ever since Akainu became the new fleet admiral, when Jinbei was explaining this to us during the Fishman Island arc, I really haven't seen all of that ruthlessness, except out of Ryokugyu when he was describing like, it doesn't matter, the celestial dragons are gods and everyone else beneath them is worthless, and all we have to do is just do what they say, and all the world has to do is just do what they say. But I haven't really seen the absolute ruthlessness that the world government saw in Akainu being put through the Navy as often. That's just me. I went off on a whole tangent about Akainu and how scary he's going to be when he actually gets to leave the base. We need to get back to the story as a whole. Akainu is frustrated that he has to wait. And then meanwhile, on future Egghead Island, we have the Kuma still looking for them, as it turns out that Bonnie used her powers to age up Luffy to age 70 and Chopper to age 70, while she aged herself and Jinbei down to their child age. And the one thing we find out about Jewelry Bonnie's powers is the fact that it doesn't physically and chronologically age you backwards. It just gives you the appearance of that age. Because Jinbei still has the scar he has as an adult as he does in his appearance as a kid. So you're not physically being aged. Your appearance is just taking on the appearance. Your appearance is just taking on that of an age itself. Matter of fact, let's just be real specific here. Let me go down to her powers, which still doesn't have a name, but I feel like we're going to get the name of her Devil Fruit power in this arc. We have to. But, right here. Let's see. Or it could be that where I got that information from was wrong, and that she does indeed age them, because the description of her power is a currently unnamed paramecia-type devil fruit that allows her to manipulate the aging process, allowing her to freely make herself and others older or younger. She can use this power to disguise herself as well as cripple opponents by rapidly aging her intended targets into their senior years or regressing them into small, weak children. As a result of this ability, accurately determining her true age is difficult. Any target whose bodily age have been altered by their power still retains all of their memory's cognitive abilities, as shown by the Marines and Bonnie herself acting the same as normal regardless of the age their body is shown to be, though targets that have been reduced to toddlers have a tendency to cry as much. In addition, any markings the target may have will not be affected by this power, as Jinbei still retained a scar around his left eye after being turned into a child by this ability. So, I thought I read it from Artur, Library of Ohata, where he says, like, Bonnie's powers don't actually physically age them. Actually age them backwards, but apparently it actually does. So apparently that might be wrong. The look at Law getting the Yonko treatment. Shanks and Whitebeard make contact. Shanks and Kaido make contact. Big Mom and Kaido make contact, and now Blackbeard and Trafalgar Law make contact. It's just an ongoing made contact pattern that's been happening that they all have to, that the world government has been keeping track of, but have done absolutely nothing against. The only person who really wanted to do something about one of these contacts was Kizaru, saying, like, Big Mom and Kaido are trying to get in contact with each other. You want me to go head over there and keep that from happening? That's the only person who wants to try and do something. But he was held back because Akane was all like, we don't know what's going on in Wano, so I don't want to send you over there without knowing the strength of the samurai. But it's like, every single time, the Navy is just stuck, waiting. So, Bonnie physically her power does age people. I don't know where I thought that it was just like physically, appearance-wise, just making them look older and younger, when it is in fact a power that can age people up and down physically, all the way down to the bones of their body. So, I don't know why Artur, Library of Ohata, said that once. Or maybe I misread it. I probably misread what he said during that tweet. But she ages up Luffy and Chopper, and ages herself and Jinbei down. Where we get a little bit more exposition about Kuma when he used to be king of the Sorbet Kingdom. If you don't mind me saying this, Bonnie, here's what I know about Kuma. He started off as the wicked king of the Sorbet Kingdom until the people drove him off and he became a pirate. And Bonnie doesn't say anything. He was affiliated with the Revolutionary Army too until the Navy captured him and sentenced him to life imprisonment. But Vegapunk was enamored with his muscle and latent abilities. Latent abilities? What latent abilities? So in exchange for taking part in body augmentation and clone development, Kuma was allowed to return to freedom as a warlord of the sea. And then Bonnie takes out like some sort of remote control and she ignites it, and it turns basically into like a laser sword, lightsaber type weapon. And Bonnie says, the warlord and clone soldier development I can understand, but being turned into a cyborg might as well be a death sentence. Who would ever make such a deal if they knew the consequences from the start? And Jinbei says, that's true, but life in prison is a heavy sentence. How many crimes must Kuma the Tyrant have committed? And then Bonnie angrily slashes in the direction of Chopper and Luffy as she screams, my father was not a tyrant. He hated the world government. He would never work for them. They experimented on him by force. And Luffy is surprised, and still, even though he's aged up to be 70 years old, which technically makes him 89. Because if he was aged up... No, I'm reading that wrong. No, I'm reading it wrong. I don't know where I got 89 from. I thought she added 70 years on top of his 19 years, but no, she just aged him up to 70. But she says, my father was not a tyrant, and Luffy is shocked to see like a whole lightsaber, saying like, that's Anshan, being super old. And then Bonnie says, my point is, it's murder in the name of science. My father told me that he was from a special people. Like, what? Special people? I'm like, the most special people we've seen already that was new and introduced were the Lunarians, which King comes from. And it's from his body that the Seraphim are created. So what makes Kuma so special? My father told me that he was from a special people, but so what? That doesn't give them the right to force experiments on him. It doesn't give them the right to kill him. And then Luffy is agreeing with her. And then Luffy's agreeing with her, and Chopper's all like, special people? Then it cuts to Team Sunny as they're in the hand of Vegapunk Lilith as they're flying into the air. And she's describing the robot flying in the air, going, the Vegapunk Force number 1 here uses his jet boosters on the back for propulsion and floats using anti-gravity. It's only possible because of the island's air conditioning, but one day it'll be a reality all over the world. And they're looking down at the amusement park area where Luffy and company were at previously. As Lilith says, hey, there's a giant monster down there. And they're all in the Straw Hat crew is going, hey, there's a giant monster down there. What's the deal with this futuristic city? And Lilith says, that's correct. This is the island where we build the future. Future Island Egghead. I thought my phone was ringing, but my phone is right next to me. There's nothing new right there. Future Island Egghead. Atop the clouds is the Labo phase where the research happens. Below is the Fabrio phase, the factory level. The workers and researchers live there. Still yet to be confirmed if they are actually living human beings or clones and cyborgs that Vegapunk has created to make it seem populated. Seems like your captain is causing a fuss down below. Well, at least he's alright. They're not worried about the damage and stuff that he's doing down there. They're just all like, well, at least he's fine. And as they land, they start walking on these clouds that are basically a replica of the Sky Islands. They pretty much replicated the Sky Islands themselves to separate the Labo phase and the Fabrio phase of Egghead. And Lilith explains, saying, yes, well deduced, by perfectly controlling the island's air systems, we can modify the density of pyroblowin and moisture in the condensation nuclei, thus recreating the island clouds and sea clouds from Sky Islands. And everyone's all like, we didn't deduce that at all. Then it cuts up to the Labo chute that leads directly into the entrance to the lab of Vegapunk itself. And before they get in there, they all change into the new clothes that decks out Robin, Nami, Frankie, Sanji, and Usopp in new Vegapunk gear. And they all look good. Robin looks good. Nami looks good. Frankie doesn't look much different. Wait, does he have pants? Frankie? I never noticed Frankie has pants. For the first time in the series, Frankie has pants. How did I not notice this? Frankie has pants. I never thought I would see the day when Frankie would have his legs covered. I'm so used to the Speedo. He has pants. The last time I saw Frankie having pants was in the horrible, unreleased footage of 4Kids trying to dub the Enies lobby arc. And they painted over Frankie's legs to make it look like he had like black skin tights. But never in my wildest dreams did I think we would see with Frankie with pants. I don't know how I didn't notice. That's messing with my mind right now. That doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem right for Frankie to have pants. But here he is. He has pants. I'm sorry. How did I not notice? I'm just so used to seeing Frankie with a Speedo that my mind just automatically thought, oh, I can't see behind Usopp all that much. But Frankie, yeah, he kind of looks futuristic as well, and he has his usual Speedo. But I'm looking at it right now as he's posing directly in front of Sanji, and it shows him with his legs covered. This is the first time we've seen Frankie with his entire body covered and none of his skin. Just none of his skin just showing. I don't know how I feel about Frankie having pants, because that's not something that I ever thought I'd see. But as they're marveling at each other, with Frankie all like, "How do I look?" and Sanji's all like, "You look like a perv in any outfit." Stop it! You're making me blush. Then it cuts to Shaka the Good speaking to someone, going, "Being a genius means being able to see even when your own future contains." what your own future contains. And a voice goes, "What do you mean, Vegapunk?" And Shaka the Good goes, "I suspect that my death is imminent. And then the voice that's talking to him says, "Stop telling bad jokes, they're not funny." Then Shaka says, "So I want you to hear me out. So I wanted you to hear me out, dragon." And it turns out that Vegapunk has in fact been in contact with the Revolutionary Army. And the fact that Dragon responds to what he's saying is like, "Stop telling bad jokes, it's not funny," means that this is not the first time that Dragon and Vegapunk have talked to each other. Who knows how long Dragon has been in contact with Vegapunk, which just adds more fuel to the fire to a lot of outstanding fan theories about Vegapunk having a place in the Revolutionary Army, and that's the reason why Kuma behaved the way he did before he left after protecting the Sunny for 2 years straight. So now this just begs the question, what is the relationship between Vegapunk and the Revolutionary Army? What's going on? Just what's going on? And as I said before, when I did my reactions to these chapters, we still have no idea where the story of One Piece is going, which, like I said, is a good thing, because we've had a heading since Punk Hazard all the way up to Wano with an end goal. Here we are in a brand new arc on a brand new island, and we have no idea where anything is going. Even while Blackbeard is facing off against Law, we don't know the outcome. Even while we're here on Egghead Island, which is the main lab of Vegapunk, with Luffy and the entire crew, and one aspect of Vegapunk wanting to meet the entire Straw Hat crew, it literally doesn't paint us a picture as to where the direction is going to go for the future. We got CP0 closing in on Egghead because they have orders to kill Vegapunk and all the Vegapunks. Just completely eliminate Vegapunk for reasons we still don't know. They just got orders to go kill him. And not to mention, we have Jewelry Bonnie, who's here on this island to get revenge on Vegapunk for what he did to Kuma and turned him into a mindless, soulless pacifista. There's just so many things to consider about all of these pages. Now that we're here, we can go through all of the chapter notes because they're kind of extensive. But chapter notes: Kuzan and Van Augur capture Pudding and are back to one of the Blackbeard pirate ships. Kuzan is nowhere to be seen. Even though he was there to deliver Pudding to be imprisoned by the Blackbeard pirates, he is nowhere around. The Blackbeard pirates and Heart pirates continue their battle. Blackbeard confirms that all of his officers now have Devil Fruit powers, which includes Vasco Shot and Avalo Pizarro, who have yet to reveal their powers. If he says all of his officers have them, then those two are the only ones who have yet to show it. San Juan Wolf already has one. It's a gigantification type Devil Fruit power that allows him to become even bigger than normal. Pudding is held captive on one of the Blackbeard pirates' ships. Law cuts Stronger in half and impales Teach. Penguin and Shachi attack the Blackbeard's pirate ship along the Polar Tang. Sakazuki is informed through the Denden Mushi of the battle between Blackbeard and Law. First of all, how are they able to pick up on this whole battle that's going on between Law and Blackbeard so easily? Law's crew's in trouble if Kuzan is on the island? Yeah, all it and I believe you brought this up before. All it takes is for Kuzan to completely freeze the water for the entire crew that's inside the Polar Tang and the Polar Tang itself to be completely immobilized. That's all it takes. He just needs to put his hand in the water and completely freeze the Polar Tang and everyone in it, and then that's it. They're just frozen solid. And they're underwater too, so maybe Winter Island is one of Blackbeard's territories? I don't know. We don't even know. We don't even know about the specifics about Winter Island. But Sakazuki is informed through the Denden Mushi of the battle between Blackbeard and Law. Bonnie temporarily ages Luffy and Chopper to old age, and herself and Jinbei to their child selves. The pacifista police officer is no longer pursuing them as a result. Jinbei explains Kuma's background. He was deposed by his people as a king, was caught by the Marines as a revolutionary, and then became a warlord in exchange for letting Vegapunk experiment on him. The pacifista are confirmed to be clones of Kuma. According to Bonnie, Kuma belongs to a special group of people and was therefore targeted by the world government for their pacifista project. She also denies his role as a tyrant king. Bonnie finds and equips a beam sword to use against Vegapunk. So she basically has a lightsaber now. Lilith brings the Thousand Sunny to the Egghead Island. The main lab is located in the clouds above Egghead. With the exception of Zoro and Brook, the rest of the Straw Hats disembark and change clothes. And lastly, Shaka is shown talking to Dragon and also believes that they might die soon. So, from everything that we've gathered, from all this information that we've gained from reading through these three chapters, I still don't know where this story is going. And that's a good thing. Blackbeard is facing off against Law. Outcome unknown, especially if Law doesn't know about the unique properties of the Yami Yami no Mi and how it can nullify Devil Fruit powers. That's going on. Not to mention, if Law loses, he's completely at the mercy of Blackbeard. And that's a scary thought when you have the Ope Ope no Mi, which is called the ultimate devil fruit due to its ability to cause people to when they have the ultimate the ultimate life surgery, or the I forget the exact name of the surgery. Hold on, I'm looking it up. Don't look it up. I'm gonna look it up myself so I can see with my own eyes. Where is it? What is it called? What is the technique called? It's called a certain type of surgery. I'm looking at the page. Don't look it up. I'm doing it. What is the surgery called? I think I bypassed it on the page. Where is it? It has a specific name. Ah, there it is. It's called the Perennial Youth Operation, or Perpetual Youth Surgery in the Funimation subs and dub, and Immortality Operation in the Viz manga. You think the end of the volume will be the next chapter? You still don't understand why Devil Fruit users' weakness is water? You still find it weird? That's the thing. We don't know why water is the weakness of Devil Fruit users. We just know that it is, but we don't know why. We just hear stories about the power comes from the sea and the weakness is power comes from the sea or whatever. It's like it's speculated why the weakness is the sea, but we have yet to get a full-on confirmation as to why the sea and being in water is the weakness of Devil Fruit users. Now, mind you, Psycho, water itself is not the weakness of Devil Fruit users, but being immersed in water, submerged in water, is a weakness. Just having your body partway through it is more than enough to cause the effects to happen. Which is why, if you were to look at One Piece Film Z, and some of the Straw Hats, such as Luffy and Brook, are in the spa, they're left very tired, despite being in the spa, simply because their bodies are slightly submerged. But we don't know why being submerged in water is the weakness of Devil Fruits, because it's a crippling weakness. It doesn't matter if you are the strongest being in the world. They all fear being inside of the ocean, because that completely nullifies their powers. But it doesn't just nullify their powers, but also renders the person who has the powers immobile. So what happens is that water is a death sentence to Devil Fruit users if they have no way to get out, because they're left immobile. The moment their bodies hit water and fall into it, they can't struggle. They can't move because it's like their whole bodies just locks up. They get paralyzed the moment they enter into the water. But we don't know why. We don't know why water specifically. There's lots of stories that characters in this story will give you saying like, well, for this reason, that's the reason why you sing in the water. Or that reason, that's the reason why you sing in the water. But no one has a concrete confirmation as to the very finite reason as why being in water is basically the Achilles heel of any person with devil fruit powers, regardless of their strength. Even someone like Kaido could fall into the water and he be rendered immobile. The strongest creature in the world. One of the strongest characters we've ever seen in the entire series, and he could be rendered completely immobile the moment he falls in water. Heck, we even seen Big Mom fall into the water and she was left immobile. The only thing that saved her was her getting washed up on the shore of Wano. That's it. No one saved her. She just got lucky. Had it not been for that, Big Mom would have died. Period. No amount of strength can make it so that you're able to stave off that one massive drawback of being in the sea. It's weird. We don't know. Hopefully we learn. Jack and Vanderdecken are fishmen, so they won't die. Exactly, because they can breathe underwater. That's the only reason why they were able to survive. But they're still left up to its effects. And the reason why Vanderdecken was able to move around underwater is because he had a bubble around him, like a coating around him that allowed him to move. If he was in the water, he would have fallen under the same effects as well. Because notice that you never see him in the ocean itself swimming around. Because even though he's a fish man, he still couldn't move. Jack is the same way. He's a hybrid fish man too. But he couldn't move as soon as Zunisha knocked his ship off and he fell into the water, and he was just hoping that someone would find him at the bottom of the sea. He couldn't move. That's a worse fate when you think about it. You're unable to die, but you're unable to move. And you're stuck underwater just waiting for someone to come rescue you. That's a horrible fate. But we still don't know the specifics as to why the sea is their weakness. And I really hope that we get explained about it during this arc. Because I can't think of any other better place to find out about the specifics of devil fruits and how they work and how the weaknesses work and why devil fruits are the way they are than the home laboratory of One Piece's smartest individual. Who knows how all this stuff works? If we don't get any information about devil fruits as a whole from Vegapunk, I am going to be upset. Really, because this is one of the biggest mysteries in all of One Piece that no one but Oda knows. And I can't wait for us to find it out, because once we find out how devil fruits work, the specifics of them, how the weaknesses work, and why things do the way they do when it comes to devil fruit, it'll pretty much just fundamentally change everything we know about devil fruits and how we've ever seen them in the past. But I'm ready to see that. But, a bit off topic, but you just realized that Jin Rummy and Sheep's Head are still not confirmed dead. No, they're not. Because when's the last time we saw Jin Rummy? Last time we saw Jin Rummy was on Zou, correct? Yeah, status unknown. If we go to the history, Whole Cake Island, Zou Arc, Jin Rummy and her crew and her group returned to Jack with a report that Raizo was not on Zou. However, Jack was not content with this and decided to return to Zou after punishing Sheepshead, which prompted Jin Rummy to note that she could not tell Jack that they were driven out of Zou. As Jack commenced his attack on Zunisha, Jin Rummy was visibly disturbed by Jack's descriptions of what he planned to do in order to kill the massive elephant. Eventually, however, Zunisha retaliated and sunk Jack's fleet with a single blow, leaving Jin Rummy's fate unknown. And since she's an artificial Zoan... Wait, is she? Hold on. Yeah, she's an artificial Zoan, but her powers has never been shown. She's a gifter, but her powers have never been shown. But she still suffers the same weakness as regular devil fruit users, artificial or no. She still suffers the same effect. So, yeah, you're right. Their fates are still unknown right now. They were on the ship with Jack when they were making their way to Zoe. Jin, Rummy, and Sheepshead were in the same fleet, and Zunisha destroyed that whole fleet, and Jack was the only one who came back. We don't know where the rest of them are. If they fell in the ocean and they didn't get them, they're dead. Because Jin, Rummy, and Sheepshead are not half fishman. If Jack was the only one who got brought back to Onigashima when they came and found him, and Jin, Rummy, and Sheepshead were in the water, but they didn't grab them, they're dead. Even though their status says unknown, unless we see otherwise, yeah, might as well just stick with unknown. But yeah, Jack was the only one to come back from that whole big mess with Zunisha. But given where these chapters left off, this stream might not be as long as my previous one was. Given how things left off in the chapters, we just got more thoughts of what's the relationship between Vegapunk and the Revolutionaries, the relationship between Bonnie, Vegapunk, and Kuma. We already know about Bonnie and Kuma because they're daughter and father. But there's just so many more questions that are just hanging in the air right now concerning One Piece that I can't wait to read. Now, One Piece Film Red drops this week. Oh, I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see it. I've been looking forward to One Piece Film Red for so very long, and I'm just happy that I'm going to be able to see it finally after waiting. And I've been avoiding Twitter and looking at anything that has to do with One Piece Film Red. I've blacklisted so many words so I can enjoy the movie when I go see it. And then after that, Sonic and God of War. Oh, it's such a good week. It really is a good week. More Bayonetta this week. Sonic and God of War next week. One Piece this week. It's like it's so good to be alive. I'm so glad to have lived to see this moment where I get to see an upcoming One Piece movie, and then after that, look forward to the new Sonic game and look forward to the new God of War game. It's gonna be fun. I can't wait to see it. But overall, these were good chapters, but they still leave me with so many more questions. Oda has been doing that with every single chapter with Egghead, just making me think, okay, what? What, Oda? You're just gonna drop all this stuff and then not answer? Like, Oda's a person that comes in, drops all this knowledge about One Piece, doesn't explain the specifics, leaves with no explanation. And then that's just basically what Oda does with every single one of these chapters ever since Egghead had started. That's just me personally, but I feel like there's more mystery looming over us than there has been in One Piece in such a long time. Since before we got to Wano, I want to say. Well before we got to Wano. There's just so much mystery, but I'm looking forward to it. And I'm glad we're getting a chapter this upcoming Sunday. This whole week is a break for One Piece. Next week is when we come back, and I'm looking forward to it. But what did you guys think? What did you guys think about One Piece as a whole? I almost hit my mic there. But seriously, what did y'all think about these 3 chapters? I want to know before I close this out today. And then I got to do my reaction to the new Bleach episode, because that's out today as well. I'm just looking over anything I may have missed while this is going on. Oh, if I don't say anything else concerning these chapters as a whole, Frankie has pants. How do y'all feel about Frankie having pants? Hmm. Really strong chapters and so much lore. Found confusing but awesome. Yes, these are strong chapters and so much information. I feel when we get to the penultimate chapter of Egghead, we'll probably learn far more about Egghead in these few chapters than we have over the many years that One Piece has been out. Questions that we've been wondering for a very long time. And then once Egghead is done, we have no idea what direction we're going to be going into next. I feel like Egghead would probably propel them in the next direction. I wouldn't be surprised if Egghead is the propel mini arc that tells us where we're supposed to be going next. I wouldn't be surprised if one of these chapters gives that to us. That's how I feel. But you say you found it confusing but still awesome? Yeah, it takes a lot to like catch up to everything that's going on with One Piece. It can be quite confusing at sometimes, though hopefully not as convoluted as Kingdom Hearts' story. If you can understand Kingdom Hearts, then you can pretty much, if you can understand the story of Kingdom Hearts, you can pretty much understand the story of basically any series ever, because I've never seen a game more convoluted with this story than Kingdom Hearts. I'm trying to think and see if there's any other story that sounds even more convoluted than that, but nothing's coming to mind. But overall, I enjoy these chapters. I don't want to keep you guys here any longer than I already have. I just wanted to give you my thoughts on what I thought of these chapters, and as we discuss them, and as we look forward to November and then December. This year is almost over, everyone. I can't believe that we're going to be entering into the year 2023 soon. And I say soon, even though there's 2 full months still ahead of us, but it's 2 full months out of 10 already. So this year really has flown on by. I'll give my final thoughts for this year and like a final stream of this year, which I'm looking forward to. But overall, this has been a fantastic year for One Piece, especially with Wano ending and we're going into a new saga, and Oda is ready to give us the rest of One Piece. He's done writing. He's done fixing up the finale so he can bring it to a satisfying conclusion. Oda's done doing things to make sure the story is ready to finish. He's done. He's just got to give the rest of it to us, which I'm looking forward to. And that's where I'm going to draw to a close for today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all enjoyed my reflections for the month of October in the year 2022. And for all of you One Piece fans, like, if you're brand new here, I do reactions to One Piece every single Sunday when the chapters allow, and I do episode reactions every Saturday night at 10 and have it up like before 12, so that way you guys can view that as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it for One Piece stuff, unless there's like new games and stuff coming out. But that's for you One Piece fans out there. For everyone else, hope you all enjoyed. Can't wait to see you all in my next video. And if you're new to the channel and you enjoyed what you saw here today, then like, subscribe, and maybe even consider becoming a member, because I am always looking forward to entertaining you. So have a fantastic day, and once again, as always, later peoples. Time for me to get started with Bleach, because that episode has been out for a hot minute, and I can't wait to see what happens!